Did you know that 80% of engineers get rejected even before getting an interview? The main reason for this is bad resumes. Many resumes lack job relevant information, they are not in the right format, and do not use the right skill terms. As the engineering industry constantly evolves with new technology and skills, it's important that our resumes evolve as well to meet the industry standards. And that's where Capable and AICT come in. We are launching BR Square, Build Resume, Break Record, an event designed to help you create the perfect resume. We will be inviting hiring managers and industry experts from various domains to provide insights on the best resume practices. We will also be giving out premium resume templates and offering a chance for an internship or job opportunity. But that's not all. We are also aiming to break the world record for creating the highest number of resumes in a single day. And the best part, it's completely free. Are you excited to join us and create the perfect resume? Register on our website by using the link given below. So, let's unite together and break the world record while raising awareness about the importance of having an industry standard resume. Together, we can make India an engineering nation.
So have you done more sessions before?
Yeah, we keep doing these sessions. So this is, I think we are doing after 3 or 4 months another event. Previously we did it with AICT head and all of those folks as well. So,
Head?
but now we are planning to go more regular.
Okay.
Cool. So I think
People and friends who were driven, right? Who were exceptional, and I could make it work for me with their help. Yeah. So in this session, I wanted to kind of share some of the things I did at college and some of the things I did not do at college, which I could have done, but now I know better after like 5.5 years in college. So in this session, I wanted to go over some of those things that you as students can begin doing in your college days to begin a career in technology. And then we will talk a little bit about what does a good tech resume looks like, what are the various components that go into it, and finally, how do you land a job at some of the top companies in the world. So yeah, let's get started. I think we will see a presentation soon. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. I think I've already covered what we are gonna cover in this section. Let's move on to the next slide. So basically, in this section, I want to cover what are some of the things that you can do while you're at college to get a head start when you're beginning your career in technology, right? Some of these things would apply to other kind of jobs as well if you're not applying to software engineering or something else, but some of the components are like specific to software engineering. uh, First is academics. So one of the very important things which you are applying, which is when you're applying to any entry level job in college, is your grades, because it's one of the few data points that recruiters have to assess any candidate, because these are students applying from college to not really have any prior experience in the industry. So grades is one of the important things for the recruiters. So I advise everyone who is in college and who has the opportunity to improve their grades. I think it's a huge plus if you have good grades. It kind of gives you an edge. Having said that, if you're in your fourth year and you do not have enough time left to improve your grades, that's okay. There's other things that you can do in terms of projects and competitions, etc., which can still make your resume look good. So next slide, please. So second thing is projects. So when I was in my second year, at the end of my second year, I went to a professor in computer science department. I was in electronics engineering, but I was applying to a role in software. And I asked him if I can do a project with him in natural language processing, which is a part of machine learning. And I was basically passionate about that topic. I was interested in it. So the professor agreed to do a project with me. So I did a 2-month project in my summer break with that professor. So that helped me have some kind of pseudo experience to put on my resume before I started applying for internships or even jobs. So before you apply to any entry level job in any of the companies, I recommend that you have like 2 or 3 projects at least, which you have done in the relevant field, to put on your resume. And even if you're not able to do projects with professors from your own college, you can always reach out to professors from different other colleges. Like a lot of my friends did projects with professors from IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, and some even foreign universities. So that's an option as well. Moving on, next slide. So next, what you can do is participate in competitions. This is something I really like to do in my college days. I was really passionate about robotics and participating in these technical competitions. For example, we used to have a departmental festival every year where we had some technical challenges. Like, for example, one of the challenges was to, make a software which can recognize your hand gestures using machine learning. So those kind of competitions are really fun, and in addition, they are like a great learning opportunity, and they look really good in your resume as well. And you can always participate in festivals of other colleges as well if you don't have festivals, technical festivals or technical competitions in your college. For example, I participated in a technical competition for image processing in IIT Bombay when I was in my third year. So yeah, that's one other thing you can do. Next, and again, very important thing, next slide please, is network. uh, so building a good network of people who are on a similar journey, who are going into the corporate sector, who have already been in the corporate sector, I think is a very, very important thing, and it's very useful like throughout your career. So when you're at your college, for example, you can start by talking to your seniors, right? A lot of opportunities people get by talking to your seniors. For example, I had to apply to Goldman Sachs. I reached out to some of the seniors from my college who had gotten into Goldman Sachs, to ask them how do I prepare for this. So it's important to connect with people not only from your college. You can LinkedIn is a really powerful tool, and you can go on LinkedIn and reach out to people who are in the companies that you want to work in and ask them how did they do it. So that is one other important thing that you can do while you're at college. Next is practice. So practice, when I say practice, I mean if you're applying to software engineering job, one of the basic things that every company, be it top companies like Google or Amazon, or be it startups, everybody asks you coding. And how do you learn coding? You learn coding by practicing, right? There are one of the advantages of applying to any software engineering company is that you have a plethora of online websites and portals which can help you prepare, right? For example, there's websites like LeetCode and InterviewBit, etc., which I used during my college days to practice data structures and algorithms. These kind of websites also tell you, like, by company, what kind of questions do these companies ask, what kind of questions does Google ask, kind of questions does Amazon ask. So you have to practice a lot if you want to get into software engineering job. For example, I switched my job from Goldman Sachs to Google, right, recently, about 7 months back, and I probably practiced like 150 questions, coding questions on LeetCode. So that's very important, and it should start from your college days. I was a bit late in starting to practice coding. I started practicing coding in when I was in my fourth year, which is the reason I probably missed out on some of the good internship opportunities. So yeah, that's another big thing. Next, what you can do is basically participate in hackathons. This is optional. You don't have to do all of these things, but some of the people find participating in hackathons useful. So all these coding portals hold various coding competitions and hackathons, and participating them is a good learning experience. And if you win something, that's something really good for resume as well. And there are some hackathons conducted by various companies as well. So when I was in my college, I remember the company Visa did a hackathon for women all over India. and that was basically their means of hiring. So anybody who performs well in that hackathon got job offers from Visa as well. So various companies, like Visa is one example, conduct these hackathons, and you can participate in them and even get offers out of it. uh, Lastly, what I have in my list is online courses. So one of the ways to develop skills in software engineering, let's say, especially for people who are not from computer science stream, right? I was studying electronics engineering, for example, but I wanted to study some computer engineering courses so that I could get into a job in software engineering. So one of the ways to kind of build that skill set and understand the concepts of the job that you're applying to is through online courses. Like I did a couple of online courses when before I applied to various jobs. Like I did one on machine learning, etc. And Capable provides really good online courses as well for developing various job relevant skills. So yeah, that's one other thing you can use to start preparing for your corporate career. Yeah, so moving on. So this is the kind of things you can start doing right in college as a student, and they will give you a head start, right? Uh, Moving on the next slide, we have, I have just included some of the tips and tricks for resume. Basically, all the things that we talked about would go into your resume, right? Academics, like for the entry level jobs, I think education comes at the top of your resume, right? So there you can also mention any academic awards that you've got in addition to your grades, of course, and the course you're doing. You can also mention if you are, for example, top of your department. You can mention that, yeah, I'm department rank 1, or I'm in top 5% in my department. These kind of things, it's optional, but this makes an impactful resume. And then one other thing I would mention is for any projects that you've done or any work experience that you have in the form of internships, etc. So of course you'd write it on your resume, but one of the things you can keep in mind is that write it in an impactful way, which means that choose impactful words, right? Like I led a team of these many members to implement such and such. Or even if you've not led, I've designed and implemented such and such system, right? And you can include some of the results as well. For example, I included this feature in this tool and it improved its accuracy by 65%. All right. So if you include some results, right, of what you did, what came out of it, that makes your projects look impactful, right? And it gives the hiring manager or recruiter a signal that you know what you did, right? And you know what the impact of what you did was. So that's a really positive thing. And then coming on to skills, if you're applying to a technical job, you would mention your technical skills, like I know such and such programming languages, and these particular technical concepts. What you can also do is, go into the job description of the company you're applying to, and you can see some of the keywords about what are the things they are looking for in the candidate, and include some of those in your skill set as well. Uh, if you know those skills, so that's a good practice as well. It helps your resume even filter through any automated applicant tracking systems that some of the companies use to filter out resumes. um, that's that's on skills. Moving on to the next slide, I just quickly mention about activities. So if you've done any extracurriculars or any activities, you've organized some event in your college, you can include those. But just be careful. I think it's important to include the activities that highlight some either some technical skills or organizational experience or leadership potential. So those kind of activities are important to include in resume, not necessarily your hobbies. And lastly, you can include a section of additional information, which is basically any awards you won, any certifications you have done, those kind of things. Any online courses or certifications you've done can go in there as well. Some people, I think, mention, their address and those kind of things. I don't think that that's necessary in a resume. So yeah, those are the main components that make up an entry level resume, and the technical resume basically. That's on resume. And moving on to the last section of this presentation, uh, I just want to talk about, how do you land a job? So you built a resume, you've done all these activities in your college days. How do you, finally land a job, right? How do you uh, make all of that resume work for you? You know, so what you can do is, if you have, companies visiting your campus for placements or internships, then you don't, that's half job done, right? You don't have to go through the hassle of applying to the company. Then you just have to prepare for it. But if you're applying to companies that are not visiting your campus but you want to go there, that's, a lot of people do that, and a lot of companies actually hire through that way, right? So what you can do is, some of the tips that I would suggest are, if you know someone who works at that company, if you're applying to Google, let's say, and you know someone at Google, you can ask them for a referral. So that's where your network helps you, right? If you worked to develop a network, if you have, created a LinkedIn profile, you can always look up people from your college who are working in that company, and ask them for a referral. Even if you don't know anybody working at that company, you can ask people who you do not know at LinkedIn, right? To help you, to do a session with you. So that's one of the things that you can do. One other thing you can do is connect to recruiters from that company that you want to apply to. For example, when I wanted to apply to Google, I connected to a recruiter on LinkedIn that was hiring for Google, right? So that is one other way to kind of get you the interview. And then lastly, you can use some other third party, agencies that can help you. I think Capable helps you as well in connecting you with internships, opportunities, etc. So these are some of the ways you can go about, getting an interview. And then finally, how do you prepare for the interview, right? And if the company is visiting your campus, and even if you're applying outside the campus, a lot of companies have these online examinations before you do the interview, and they ask you, data structures, algorithms. It's questions similar to, preparation is similar to how you would prepare for an interview. But I think the first step is to do some research by talking to people who are in that company, who work in that company. Ask them that, what are the kind of questions or concepts this particular company asks for during the interviews, or what do they expect in a candidate, right? So that's how you do the research. So when I was applying to Google, I talked to a lot of people who worked at Google and asked them what are the things I should prepare for, right? And then once you have it, then you start preparing. And one of the critical components of any software engineering job, as I mentioned, is data structures and algorithms, and basically knowing coding, solving coding problems. And the only trick to kind of preparing for those is, as I said, you just have to practice a lot. You have to keep practicing, and that's how you eventually get better at coding. Yeah, so that's some of the things that I had in my mind about how you can go about realizing the dream of getting into some of the top companies in software engineering. And yeah, I think we can take some of the questions now.
Uh, Perfect, Jivan. I think that was a good bit by bit walkthrough to the students in terms of how should they be building up. So everyone, we are up for questions. There are certain things I will be having a word with Jivan on so that you will get more insights on. And this is a good time. Whatever questions you have, feel free to put it up in the chat here, and we will be taking up those questions. And you don't get the chance to talk to a Google engineer every day. Please use the time and this opportunity well, and do feel free to mention your details. We will for sure pick up those questions. Now, coming to your journey, Jivan, this is pretty interesting, right? You started as an in electronics, and then you did an software internship, right? What motivated that shift? Why did the transition happen?
Yeah, I think a few factors. Like one thing was when I joined electronics, I really didn't know what I was getting into, right? I just took the course that I got for my rank in JE, right? But soon after realizing, after entering into electronics engineering, I realized that I don't really enjoy it. And I didn't see myself, working as an electronics engineering. I didn't see myself enjoying that. I was much more drawn towards, coding and building softwares, etc. That was one of the major factors that early on, in my engineering degree, I decided that I would appear for software engineering internships and placements. And one other factors was the number of opportunities available in campus, like the number of opportunities in electronics.
Uh, Sorry, Jivan. I think there was an unfortunate tech glitch here. So,
I thought it's my internet.
okay, no. This time it was mine.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry for this. Cool. So,
So,
yeah. So when it comes to preparing for a new field, what all you had to go through, because you were learning electronics and you had to do that as well, and you wanted to prepare for a new field. And there's a competition, right? You are at IIT, of course. A lot of other folks are going to try for internships and all that. So how do you get ready? How do you beat competition? Because I think all of the students who are going are listening to this would have to beat the competition to get in.
yeah.
So one thing you said is practice, but in terms of how did you beat that competition and what all you did? Some ideas on that.
Okay. Yeah. So on starting a new field, it's a little bit challenging. That's true, because you have to learn a lot of concepts by yourself, which you're not being taught in your classroom, right? But one of the things that you learn in engineering is to be that self-dependent, right? Because you see people around you doing it, so you kind of pick up on that. And to be honest, when I started out, as I mentioned in my session as well, right? I didn't practice coding until it was too late. It was almost like, I waited till the very end, right? But that was not the ideal thing to do. Um so it is challenging, but people do it, right? It's just, I think you learn from other people and get motivated by them. That's one of the ways. And then about beating competition, right? I think the most difficult, I mentioned practice, but even before you begin practicing, how do you know what you have to practice, right? So that comes from talking to people, you know by learning what the industry requirements are, right? How do you make a good resume, right? What are the kind of activities you should be doing? And this comes from, talking to more people, like attending sessions like this, right? Like the one we are doing. So learning those tips and tricks early on and knowing what you have to prepare for, I think that's one of the things, if people can do early on, that makes a lot of difference in helping them, beat the competition.
No, that's interesting, right? So you have to be always aware. You have to be thinking about what to do, and you you just can't relax, right? Okay, it will automatically happen. So changing
Yeah,
the field was tougher, and then
yeah.
yeah.
I don't mean to, put pressure. It's not to feel pressure of, yeah, how would I do it? There's so much competition. I just want to say that it's very much doable. It's just to be a little aware early on, right? Talking to people and, leveraging all the resources that you can leverage early on will help you. That doesn't mean you don't have to enjoy your college life. I enjoyed my college life. But, preparing can happen in parallel with enjoying. Yeah.
I think that's the most important message they wanted to take away from this conversation for sure. That how do they do that together, right? So when you said, as a student, many students feel that okay, IITians get into the top colleges or top companies, and IITians get into the top colleges, and you would have a lot of folks who are from non-IITs, non-NITs.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? How do they get in, and the students who are listening right now, how could they make to Google in some of the things you have already shared, but some ideas, more of thoughts in terms of how can these guys make to that?
Yeah. So yeah, that is basically a myth that only people from IITs or NITs can make it. So I work at Google, right? I interview people. And the folks who work alongside me, most of them are actually not from IITs, right? Uh, so it's just a myth, and I think for everyone who's not from these colleges, I just want to make it clear, like companies like Google and top companies don't care about what college you are from, right? They care about your skill set and whether you can do the job or not. But one of the challenges that folks from who are not from IITs or NITs could face is the companies don't come to the campus, right? But that is okay. Most of the people that are hired into a company are not from campus, right? uh, for example, Google did not come to my campus, right, when I was in my 4th year. uh, but eventually, like once you have worked in a few companies, you can always apply later, even if you don't apply for entry level job. um, so so just want to make it clear that everybody can make it. And in terms of what to do, how to start, it's just basically the tips and tricks I shared earlier. Get started as soon as you can, right? Practice your coding skills. If you want to get into Google, practice your coding skills. Even if you take a different job immediately after college, uh, just focus on building that experience. At the end, what Google asks in their interviews is they just focus on your technical skills. That's it. Can you code, right? Can you get the job done? So yeah.
This is interesting. So when it comes about getting the job done, right? You had mentioned about projects, and that does add a lot. What are the ways in which a student, like a lot of students, have this complaint from the not so best colleges? They don't have access to projects. So what are some of the ways students from various colleges can get access to some good projects?
Okay. So yeah, one of the things is you can just reach out to professors in your college, right? Which I did, right, during my college days. And then other thing I mentioned is, if you can always reach out to professors from other colleges, right? But yeah, that's not an easy thing. It's easier said than done. It's not that you will send an email to a professor and he'll say, yeah, let's do a project together. I think you have to do a lot of research about what the professor's work is, what have they published. You read their publications, develop that interest, knowledge and then email them, right? That, yeah, I read your publications and I'm interested in this field. I have been learning through maybe online courses or something, and would like to do a project with you. That's one other option. And if none of these options work, at the end, you can always do your own projects, right? Just form a group of few of your friends from college and start a project. Just look up project ideas. Like I mentioned a lot of competitions, right, which happen in various college. You can just go to their website, see what the problem statement is, try to solve it, right? So you can always create your own projects. At the end, what matters is not the professor you did it with. Nobody's gonna ask you who did you do it with, right? It's eventually, what do you get out of it? What do you learn out of it, right? So that is some of the ways people can do projects.
No. So let's say we have got the project. I have got the project. I have put it in my resume. Now, when I enter into an interview hall, okay, and there's an interviewer who is right in front of me, how does that conversation goes? Because I'm sure a lot of students want to know, okay, what's going in the interviewer's mind, and how do they judge us, and those conversations. So some thoughts on that.
Yeah, if you've written something on your resume, if you've written I've done this, you have to know it inside out, right? Now, it's not necessary the interviewer will talk to you about that particular project or the projects you've done. They might not touch your resume at all. But if they start asking it, you should know. You should be able to talk through it. Like, what are some of the things you did? A lot of interviewers don't drill deep into the concepts, but some of them do. It's very much like interviewer dependent, right? If the interviewer is also has also worked on similar lines as your project, right? You did something using neural networks or machine learning, right? And the interviewer's area of expertise is that. In that case, you can expect some really good questions as well. But having said that, for entry-level jobs, when you're early state in your career, it's not that much detail into a particular concept, right? It's mostly judging your coding skills, your whether you can develop good algorithms, whether you have whether you are a quick learner, right? Whether you can adapt to the projects that they would have in their team. Those kind of things, right? Whether you have an open mind, and a lot of interviewers just want to know the way you think, right? Do you think in an algorithmic way, right? Can you think as a software engineer does? And how do you think that way, right? You think that way by doing projects, right? By having more experience, by learning. That's how that's the way to do it.
Practice and projects. I would say that's the key, which everyone should definitely focus on, right?
Yeah, these are the main things.
Perfect. So when it comes to build, yeah. Sorry, Jivan, please go.
Okay, I just want to say that practice, I think, in my opinion, for entry-level jobs is extremely important. Yeah.
True. Because as you said, many times they might not even go into details into resume. So they would ask question and they should know. And all of the things boils down to how do you impress the interviewer at the end. You also mentioned about JD, right? And right now we spoke about, what interviewer might ask. So how many resumes did you have created as per different JDs? And can you give us some ideas on, when a reviewer looks at a resume, what is on their mindset in reference to the JD? Because I think every student is hired for a role. So how does both of these things play a part?
Yeah. So during my college, I only had one resume. That's because I didn't even know how to make a resume at that time, right? But now during lateral hiring, right, when I switched, I had only applied to Google, so I had one resume for Google. But having said that, customization of resume according to job a little bit is important. Like my resume for the application to Goldman Sachs, which is more like a quant role and more database role, you know, is not same as the resume I used for Google, right? Because Google, I had to highlight more technical skills that I exercised during my work and during my project, right? But if you're applying to, let's say, some job which is based on, data science, data analytics, then you have to specify how you've used your data analytics skills, right? So yeah, the customization is important. But I only applied to Google, so yeah, I had one resume kind of customized for Google.
Interesting. So when I was applying from my college, I had 4 or 5. I was in civil engineering and I was applying for non-engineering roles as well. So that reminded me of the hassle as well, that creating and
Yeah.
customizing.
So just want to add that if you're applying to different software engineering companies, then your resume won't be very variable between those companies. But if you're applying to, let's say, some other company which is into finance and trading, then your resume has to be tailored to that.
Correct. True. Cool. So I think one last question from my side, and then we'll jump into the user questions, because one interesting thing is we have got really good questions which would help every student out there. So one of the things which I hear a lot from students is, sir, I'm in mechanical, I want to do coding, but I don't know how to do that because I'm afraid, or I'm in this engineering, but I don't know how to switch to that. You did that while you were in college, and now you are switching again after working for 5 years in a company like Goldman Sachs. How does that work out? Some thoughts on that?
It's definitely getting out of your comfort zone. It's not something that you can consider easy. So you have to be prepared to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But for every great thing you do, you have to get out of your comfort zone, right? So I think the biggest barrier is in our mind, right? That can we do it, right? For example, I'll take the example of when I switched from Goldman Sachs to Google. I had spent 5 years in a job that was not software engineering, right? It was a quant job. And I did not have any confidence that can I do it. So yeah, first few months, I was kind of, debating, should I apply? Should I not apply? What should I do? Right. And then what I did was I talked to some people who had made similar kind of switch, right? Who had moved from a quant role to tech role. I started talking to some of those people and I asked, like, did you face any problems? And how did you prepare? Right. So yeah, you have to prepare. I spent like 2 months preparing for coding. I'd forgotten what I'd done in college. I spent 2 months preparing, for Google specifically, and then I applied. But I think the hardest part is just getting started, crossing that initial barrier of can I do it?
One has to go through their fears.
Yeah, true.
And get out of them. Awesome. So I think this is really cool. We will be jumping into some of the questions now. So one question has been asked is, ma'am, can you say how the interview in Google will be? And this is for, say, for example, fresher. So what's your thought on this?
Google is just so Google doesn't even, care about your resume that much. As in the resume, they care about resume to get you to the interview, right? Your resume has to pass you and get you an interview. But after you have an interview, they just ask you, for freshers, they just ask you data structures and algorithm questions. So for example, in every interview, they ask you one coding problem. You have to solve it in that interview, just one coding problem through the interview. They'll give you hints. They are very, open about that. You don't have to know the problem. Most likely, the problems that they ask you in Google, you would have never heard of them, right? They're just new, fresh problems. But they would guide you, right? You should. They want to know your thinking process, right? If you're thinking about, okay, maybe I can try this problem using this approach or that approach, you have to tell them, right? And then if you're going in the wrong direction, They're very friendly in that way. They give you hints, right? Okay, yeah, this is not going to work, something like that. And basically, at the end, they want to know that how you think, right? And you have to solve that problem in that one interview. And I think they would have multiple interviews, which are similar pattern for freshers. And then finally, they have last interview, which is called googliness, where they want to see if you're a good fit, like apart from technical, right? Where they'll ask you just general questions like, organization or if you're a working professional, they'll ask you questions like, how did you resolve a conflict in your team, something like that, right? That is just general. They can ask you anything, but that's just meant to give them an idea that you are fit for Google culture. Right? It's not something to be afraid of. It's not a very, ruthless interview. But they just want to know that you can, thrive in ambiguity and you can get work done. Yeah, that's it.
Be prepared, have good enough practice, and they
Yeah.
are not going to, harass you in the interview. They are going to be very good people to talk to, and then crack the interviews.
Yeah.
Perfect. So one student have asked about, Jeevan, sorry.
I just wanted to say, it's just your technical knowledge, your coding ability.
Perfect. One question which I would say that would resonate with a lot of people is how to develop interest in coding, which Abhishek has asked. How to develop interest in coding while writing code, not able to solve a problem. So he's struggling with how to be developing interest.
If you don't have interest in coding, then you shouldn't be a software engineer. But having said that, if you're not able to solve a problem, that doesn't mean you don't have interest in coding, right? Like when I started, right, in my 4th year, I was in my 4th year and I was solving some easy level coding questions. I just didn't know how to do it, right? And there's this initial frustration you have to get over, right? You look at the solutions. Okay, how do you solve this problem? Just look at the solutions and first try. If it doesn't work out, look at the solutions and try to code it again after getting some hints or solution. And that happens for first few weeks, I would say, when you're extremely new to coding, especially if you're in your college and you've not had any prior experience. But it gets better with practice. As you keep doing more and more questions, you just get this intuition, that, okay, this problem, I know what I have to do, right? You develop that intuition, but that intuition has to be developed by practicing different questions. I had a lot of frustration when I started coding, that why am I not able to solve it? You take it to your ego, right? How come I think I'm smart, but I'm not able to solve it? That's okay. It happens to everyone.
So anyone who was thinking there would be an easy answer that, just do it, there's no easy answer. You have to go through it and you have to work it out, but you can work it out.
Yeah.
Perfect. So another person has asked, what are the basic programs we need to be good to get a good job? So I think they would want to maybe know probably language, I guess.
Okay, maybe they're asking concepts.
Maybe yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see, entry-level jobs, one main thing is data structures and algorithms, right? That's like common across companies, right? And algorithms, like when I didn't know any better, right? When I was getting started, I thought data structures, okay, I have to go into the depth of it. I was watching some videos, series by Professor of IIT Delhi, right? I thought, yeah, that's what I need to do to crack data structures. But no, you have to, do some application-based coding practice. Again, going back, when I started on this website called InterviewBit, right? They take you through this. They start from a beginner level and they take you up various levels, right? They start you with simple questions, right? They'll start you with arrays or string questions, and then they would take you through tree questions, or various data structures like that, graphs, etc. And then there are various concepts under algorithms as well, right, which you need to master. For example, in algorithms you have this binary search and sorting. This is where you begin, and then you do a lot of dynamic programming. So yeah, within data structures and algorithms, there's various topics that you have to cover. It gets harder, like for internships. If you're applying to an internship, they'll ask you easy questions, right? But if you're applying for a job, a little bit harder questions. But yeah, I think you just go to any of these online coding portals. I think Interview Bit worked out for me when I started, and then Lead Code worked out for me later when I was applying to Google. But yeah, you can just check out various websites and see which one works out for you. They have all these concepts listed out.
Cool. And at Capable also, we are coming up with a program that would help students. So definitely be in touch on this as well. One question which Abhishek has asked is how to develop logic building in coding. Is it similar to what we answered, Jeevan?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some part of it you just learn from practice, right? Like practicing, you just understand how to build it. You start with easy questions and do it again, over and over again. That's how you learn how to build the logic. That's what algorithm means, right? Logic building. So when you practice algorithms, what are you practicing? You're practicing logic building. So yeah, again, going back, practicing would help you, get good at logic building. I think that's all I can say.
Perfect. Prathamesh has asked, is the master degree or post-graduation worth or doing a job in that time? Which one is better?
Okay. I think if your aim at the end is to do a job, right? I would just suggest do a job first. After your bachelor's, do a job, and then see if you want to go deeper into the technical, research or something. In that case, you do master's degree. Or if you want to work in a specific job, right? For example, if you want to go deep into artificial intelligence or something, you worked and you realized, okay, I want to try working in artificial intelligence, then you can do a master degree in that, and go about that. But it's not required. Like you can always begin your career without a master's degree also.
Perfect. Another question is how to develop interest in coding. Well, I think this was taken up. Filza has asked, is the process of getting a job in Google India different from Google USA? Or is it different? Do they look for different skills?
No, I don't think so. It's same. If you're applying for the same job, that's software engineer, it's the same process across different regions. And Google has very standardized process. It's not very interviewer dependent. It's not like I'm interviewing, I'll just ask what comes to my mind. It's standardized. They have guidelines that for this level, you're supposed to ask this kind of questions. So it's very uniform across Google.
Perfect. Yashashwini has asked, what are the things that we have to mainly focus on while we go for placement rounds in our college?
Placement rounds in college. Yeah, if you're applying to software engineering, again, be technically good. Develop that skill set. You should know the concepts. You should know coding. Most of the technical jobs is mostly just about skill set, right? It's just they test your knowledge. So you have to build that knowledge. And yeah, when you're going for an interview, just go with confidence and clear mind that yeah, I'm the best in the world. Just before interviews, it's just natural to get nervous. I was very nervous in my interviews, but interviewers generally are good people. They don't intend to make you nervous, right? They don't intend to freak you out. So they just consider them, they are just your friends. It just makes it easy.
This is interesting, right? At one point, we think that okay, it's something we have to get, but at the other end, the company also want good people. So
Oh,
if
yeah,
we are good, they
very,
would take it.
yeah.
True, true. Another question by Love Kumar is: should we mention about the examination like GATE, ESC, or other exams in resume?
Yeah, you can mention it. If you've passed gate and you've got rank and everything, it can go into your resume.
Perfect. Filza has asked another question: do they ask development or competitive programming questions too in the interview?
Competitive programming, I mean, competitive programming is also algorithms and data structures only. So yeah, they ask that kind of questions. That, having said that, it doesn't mean you have to, I mean, the level of questions that they ask and the level of questions you have at some good, great competitions. Uh, I think the level of questions in the company asks is a little bit less. You don't have to be that great. Um, yeah, like competitive programmers are really good, right? They solve some next level, next level difficulty questions, right? But here the difficulty won't be that bad.
They are looking for proficiency, not for a rank, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and like coding is not. I mean, you at the end on your day-to-day job, you're not solving that level difficulty algorithms, right? It's more into designing. Later on, you have to design well. So if you apply for senior level roles, like junior level roles, they'd ask you, algorithms and data structures, and senior level roles means they'll ask you system design. How do you design the software? Those kind of things.
Rasik has asked, can mechanical engineer enter in software engineering?
Yeah, so definitely. Yeah, a lot of my colleagues in Goldman Sachs as well as Google are from mechanical, and all streams actually, civil, everyone is there.
Perfect. Spurti has asked, is there any particular programming language that helps to get a good job?
No, I don't think companies care. Um, yeah, you can just do any language. I think Java, C++ are more common. But if you code in any other language, it's totally fine.
Lokesh has asked, what are the main tech skills Google are looking from candidate as software engineering?
Yeah, for entry level jobs, just data structures and algorithms, nothing else. For senior level roles, you should know a little bit about, system design, databases, um, um, other software engineering concepts, multi-threading, etc. But not for that comes at, so I think the entry level job starts at level 3. After L5, they start asking these concepts.
Perfect. I think we'll take just one or two more questions and we'll be rounding up. I think we have covered most of them, which has been asked any which way. So Abhishek has asked, can we get job in Google having knowledge of UI UX design?
Yeah, there are, I think, separate teams as well for UI. Like there are targeted UI engineers. I'm not a UI engineer. I don't really know what they ask in interviews for UI engineers and UX engineers, but there are separate teams.
Perfect. So one person has asked, is it possible to look for a job in Google as a student from a normal?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you had answered it, but the question is again.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Cool. So I think with this, we would be closing the Q&A discussion. I think there had been a great, I would say, information which everyone would have got from some of the good questions students have asked. One last point from Jeevan before I take view. Many of the students have asked here about resume templates. Many of the students have asked about how to build their profile on LinkedIn. So guys, we are going to be coming up with a session, which is the next session that I will be taking up, is how to make a resume on different tools and in different ways, and what kind of fresher resumes look like. So we will be sharing details on that, and that session would be happening very soon. Also, upcoming would a session be on how to put yourself out on LinkedIn, how to create a Git profile, or for data science, how to put yourself on Kaggle. So some of these things will also be covered in upcoming sessions. Stay tuned. We'll be sharing those details with you, and we'll be helping you out with enough content, enough material, so that that okay, how can you get a good job. So Jeevan, it had been lovely talking to you. I'm sure there was so much information which was shared. Many of the students would be able to hopefully crack a good job out of this. Any parting words, any thoughts you want the students to leave with?
Yeah, I think I would just say that, uh, anything that comes between you and getting a good job is just the mental barrier that you have. You know, just crossing that barrier, I think, is the biggest thing. Once you realize that you can do it, anybody can do it. Um, it's not that hard, right? You just have to make prepare. After the preparation, I feel, is not as hard as, realizing and getting that confidence that yes, I can do it. And in my opinion, anybody can do it. It's just some skill set you have to acquire, and it can be acquired, by over time practicing with patience. Yeah, you'll get there. And yeah,
I think
that's it.
it may sound simple, but I'm like with personal experience and as you have shared, that's the biggest barrier. And this is something very interesting you have shared. And I hope students take it to the heart. Guys, build it up. There's no stopping you. It's just that you yourself have to put out there. Thanks a lot, Jeevan. That was really great to have you and an hour from you on this. I'm sure students would have access to this. They would be revisiting again, and we would be sharing more content with them. Thanks a lot, Jeevan. It was great
Thank you
talking
for
to you.
having me. It was wonderful speaking to all of you. Bye.
Bye bye. Take care.
Did you know that 80%